Life is short. I know people say all the time, but it really, really is. Just take time to embrace how blessed and lucky we are for what we have. There's some really cool things out there. And we only have so many days. We only have much time. So when we were growing up, my dad would always take time to go on vacations. Just take that time out and appreciate what we've done. You can work really, really hard. You can accumulate all these material assets, but they're going to be taken away. We don't share enough. We don't acknowledge our wins. We're focusing so much on the end journey, we forget to take time. Look, this is what I've done. Just acknowledge your wins. It's okay to realize, hey, I've done some cool things. Let go of the freaking emotional debt that's in your body. Embrace the
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast right here from SoFi Stadium in freezing cold Los Angeles, California. Hey, we have a super special guest. I'm positive that you are going to be so edified from today's episode. Let's welcome in Alex Peykoff. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you here. And you're right. It is a little cold out here. I have to acknowledge that.
It's a little colder than you promised. That's for sure.
It wasn't a promise. It was a guarantee.
That's true.
We were in high hopes.
Those high hopes were stolen.
Yes.
I apologize for that.
Well, you have such a fascinating background. I want to jump right in because you have all of the lessons for an entrepreneur, all of the lessons of the ride up to success, but also all of the life lessons that come along while you're on that journey. And I hope that we'll be able to share with all of the listeners and viewers these lessons, because as Dave likes to teach, that life gives us lessons, and the lessons will repeat until we learn them. And we can leverage someone like yourself that has gone on this journey and literally sit down with you today and ask you for directions. Let's start with, everybody knows Niagara Bottling.
I hope so.
Let's start there. Tell us a little bit about, like, how does your family start this journey into the whole business of water and bottles?
Well, it's a very interesting story. And Dave brought it up, and now we're having the jets fly over.
I know, there we go.
So it started a long time ago. My father's father immigrated from Macedonia. And if he stayed there, he was going to get drafted in the war, and that's just going to die. He left Macedonia knowing he was never going to see his mother or his sister ever again. Came to New York, tried to start a life, had no skill set whatsoever. He had one skill. He knew how to work, right? Started out with that. Had a little bit of candy maker skills, started a family, ended up, getting married, having, sons and daughters, and they didn't live a great life, but they had work ethic. I remember my dad telling me a story. Look, we were so poor that we used our oven to heat the house, right? Okay, so he didn't come from these great means, but he came from family value, and he knew how to work. So living in New York, he was, how can I get a better life, right? So he moves to California and starts a new life. His first job is a milkman delivery. So he's going out there busting his butt. He's not trying to accumulate all this money. He's trying to accumulate enough to survive. He liked electricity. He liked running water. He liked a roof over his head, little stuff like that, right? And so as things progressed, he started working for the milk company. He says, look, I'm busting my butt, but these guys are making money off me. So basically, they're taking money from my family. Okay, so then he decides, hey, I'm going to try the water business. Gets in the water business, working for another company. He's outselling everybody. In 5 hours, he's done. There's still 3 hours left a day. So
wait, you say going door to door selling
selling
water?
Water. The 5-gallon. Back in the day, everybody had 5-gallon delivery, right?
Yes.
So in 1963, he starts the Niagara Bottling Company. Okay, so if you look at that today, it is the largest privately held beverage company in the world. We produce products from Aquafina to Dasana. You go to your Costco, your Walmart, your Sam's Club, Prime Water, Gatorade, all these we do. But it all started on one thing, his passion for his family, right? And work ethic. My dad has this famous saying. He says, I'm probably the stupidest entrepreneur out there because I didn't know how to quit. And see, that's the problem today. He didn't know how to quit. So when I look at my life, all these journeys, he was just straight arrow, focus, didn't have time for emotion, but he created this massive thing based on family. And that all is today. I wouldn't say he's part of the business, but he's still involved because he's the legacy of it. And people look at him, it's family, family, family. So that's how it started. It was based on family and work ethic.
I think it's really interesting because there's not a lot of family-owned businesses with that amount of longevity and legacy, right? And so I know that obviously the secret sauce is his love for family, but I heard you say something else when we were talking just earlier, and you said that you guys do something really unique in this world, and you treat people with respect.
Yeah, it's it's weird. We treat people with respect, and it's kind of close to my heart.
Yeah.
If you don't have respect for yourself, you can't respect others. And the problem is we go into places and we're trying to tell people how great we are. And this is how we're going to be. And I'll tell you this random story. I was in Tampa today, going to Hertz to rent my car. I go in, and it was hard to get out. People were screaming and yelling. There was a problem with the arm going up. So I go back into the gold counter, and I hear all these people from me yelling at, you're this, colorful language. And I'm going, man, what is wrong with them?
What color?
Red.
Red.
You know, F you're
Red.
ruining my
It was
vacation.
red.
Red,
Very
Yeah,
red.
it was flaming hot red.
Exactly.
Right? There was a little bit of blue in there, but that was just for me.
That's really hot. You know,
yeah,
blue's hotter than
blue's
red.
hotter
It
than
is.
red.
Yeah,
That's true,
That's why you're wearing it.
But yeah, because I'm hot. Thank you.
Exactly.
In fact, I'm getting a little hot now. So I started looking at that and go like,
We need
they
some
don't
Finally need some heat here.
Exactly.
Come on.
exactly. So I started looking at that and go, what's wrong? They don't respect themselves.
Right.
And that's what I really found what it was, is that they just didn't have respect. So it goes back to respect. You've got to respect yourself. And the only way to do that is to tell yourself the truth.
Yeah.
Right? Disrespect is going to cost you a lot of money. Respect is going to save you a lot of money and get you a lot of connections. You cannot be present without respect, period.
Love that.
And interesting of giving respect and giving work, productivity. One of the things that's lost in entrepreneurship is people that work hard are given a lot. But not all entrepreneurs see what they're given. So take someone that's working to put a roof over their family's head. Back then in New York, a lot of immigrants, through Ellis Island were very similar to your dad, and they were working the same milk routes that your father was working, or some other route, Charlie Chips or whatever existed back then. And yet they didn't have an awareness to all that they were given through what they were giving. And what I find is often missed in entrepreneurship, beyond family and hard work, which I believe are two cornerstones to success that require us to not quit, is that the open-mindedness to an awareness of what we're given. So 90% of the people doing those routes died doing those routes. And they probably, some of them worked just as hard as your dad, but they weren't aware of like, hey, I'm being given all these other opportunities through this experience. So then I moved to the water. And then there's a whole nother group of people that moved to the water with your dad, and they were working the 8 hours, what he was doing in 5. And then he realized, what can I be given with these 3 hours? And then even, and I don't know the rest of the story, when he first started the bottling company, to get into sourcing water, which took it to even the next level. What is it that we can teach entrepreneurs to not only work hard and have family values and respect, but to also be aware of all that you're given by giving all that you have?
So great. The way you explain that, I can tell you this, and I don't think everybody gets it. We only have so many energy credits. We only have much time. So when we were growing up, my dad would always take time to go on vacations and just take that time out and appreciate what we've done. You can work really, really hard, and you can accumulate all these material assets, but they're going to be taken away. And we have plenty of material assets, right? But
Big white watches.
Yeah, big white watches like that, and like leather shoes. And you can see my watch is
Nice.
gorgeous.
Like
it's a new Wonder Woman Invisible watch. It's gorgeous. But when you take time to shut down, you realize, look at all these things we've done. And you start protecting the assets that are relevant. You start making memories. And those assets are, for me, my daughter, brother. I have a brother that died from a drug overdose. I have a brother who has schizophrenia if some crap happened, right? So we started realizing, how do we really protect those assets? Working 60 hours a week isn't going to protect them, right? So you take time. You eventually acquire some material assets so you can spend more time there. So maybe we have a ranch in Montana. Maybe we have houses in different places. Maybe we have some nice yachts. Now you take time to reflect, like, look at the journey. I'll tell you this story. And my dad, Father's Day, we flew one of our planes down to a boat in La Paz. And Father's Day, he's telling this story. And I've heard the story before, but he told it differently because there was no outside noise whatsoever. And he was talking about that journey his father made. And that's what started the whole thing. And it was for family. So just taking time and share. We don't share enough. We don't acknowledge our wins. We're focusing so much on the end journey. We forget to take time. Look, this is what I've done. Just acknowledge your wins. It's okay to realize, hey, I've done some cool things. Let go of the freaking emotional debt that's in your body and embrace the freaking positivity.
But one of the things you mentioned there was assets. Yeah. And we're having an event coming up in July. The two of you will be speaking at.
Thank you.
It's about abundance and overflow in our lives, in all elements. When we typically talk abundance and overflow, the first thing we think about is money, right? What's in our bank account? You mentioned assets and then immediately spoke about your daughter, brother, family. a lot of people in the entrepreneur space want to know about asset protection. And we had a conversation. You're like, I'm going to talk about asset protection.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about, for somebody that your entire family has arrived at having lots of things, and then obviously having an understanding of asset protections. Entrepreneurs get together, oh, real estate, let's talk about that. Let's talk about, avoiding taxes. Let's talk about all of these things. And you're like, hey, Shawn, but that's not the most important asset that you should be protecting. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's hard to not talk about that without getting emotional. I had plenty of money. I still have plenty of money. I lived in probably one of the more affluent gated communities in Southern California. I was working my butt off trying to accumulate things to make sure my daughter was okay, and I forgot to protect her. I was there, I wasn't present. I was so consumed with the next deal, the next this, chasing money and chasing this, and she ended up becoming some bad stuff happened to her, right? And so I had to reevaluate. I kind of almost had to push this reboot button in our lives. When your computers are, I had to reboot for what's relevant, what's really, really relevant. Take time to feel out what really makes you feel good. We forget to find out what makes us feel good. I like nature. I like to go see a sunset, but we're so consumed with getting the next Ferrari or the next thing that can be taken away from you. My daughter, that thing that happens, I can't take it back. My brother that died of a drug overdose, I can't get him back. My best friend, George Ardros, who died of alcohol, I can't get him back. Ultra wealth, but emotionally dead. So get in touch with those emotions. Life is short. I know people say all the time, but it really, really is.
Mm-hmm.
Just take time to embrace how blessed and lucky we are for what we have. There's some really cool things out there. And whether you've got this beautiful watch that he has, right? There's other things that just embrace people, man. I know I'm getting a little emotional, but I'm making it simple. Just take what you have and say, it's good enough.
Yeah.
Count your wins.
Or it's more than enough.
It's way more than enough.
George was a friend of mine as well. And my fake watch story that night at the gala at Pelican Hill was with George and Joe. Yeah, and Joe from Grimaldi's Pizza. Yeah. Right. And I looked at Joe because he gave hundreds of thousands of dollars that night to the charity.
Yeah.
And my wife and I were there, and we looked and saw, she said, what that reminds me of? And I said, no. She said, if you would have kept on the journey that you were on, that would have been you, the richest guy in the room and the most miserable, unhappy person. And I love George and great, but alcoholism and drinking took his pain away. And instead of focusing in on what he had, right, we start focusing in on what we think other people want us to have or will respect from us. For you to make that shift when whatever incident happened with your family, your daughter, et cetera, for me, it was myself. Yeah. But what was it that you started practicing? Because I know it doesn't happen overnight. No. It's been 17 years. I'm still practicing. But I love hearing what you did to start practicing the shift in your paradigm, the transformation that you've experienced into this world of more than enough, the abundance that we're going to talk about in July at their event.
What happened for me is growing up, I was taught to be emotionless. Right. I was taught that you're a machine, you're a task, and you're going to go straight. You don't have time for stress. You don't have time for feelings. Feelings are strong or weakness. I'm going to be the strongest masculine version of myself and not get in touch with my feminine side. When my daughter was born, it wasn't a planned pregnancy. It came to my life and I said, holy crap. Right. I mean, there's this human being. I figured, you know what? I'm going to be me. I'm going to start telling myself the truth, not the truth that society is telling me what's supposed to be. I'm not, I'm the 6 foot, 200-pound guy wrecking machine, but no, I want to feel. I want to have that permission slip to be young and be a kid. And I just started seeing it. And I found out this thing called unconditional love. And it was like, oh my God, I had that, but I wasn't supposed to have that. And it happened a little faster than I thought, right? But that as I'm raising her, because I raised her by myself, went through 17 years of court custody battle with her, every acquisition you could imagine was thrown at me. It's very rare for a male to win primary custody of a daughter. And I'm watching her grow and going through the shit. And I said, you know what? What if I'm just present? What if I just feel? What if I just feel? What if I cry? What if I smile? What if I embrace the little bunny rabbit that's pouncing around and seeing that silliness, right? That's how it happened. And you're right. I'm still figuring it out. You know, I was at a event in Dallas and I lost it. Some lady came up to me being very aggressive with me and I kind of snapped back and I realized, oh my God, what happened? And I had to check back. Why did that emotional debt pop up and be present, right? There was something that triggered me because I forgot to sit there and take that time out and realize life is pretty good. And I look at my daughter, but that's how it is. It is a journey. It doesn't happen. We're all kind of tough SOSs, a-holes inside. We really are. But we got to realize it doesn't get us anywhere. And it goes back to what you're saying, respect. If I'm an a-hole to you, I'm not going to get anywhere. But that's it. It's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight, one step at a time.
When I think it's a really delicate balance, right? Between this, like you said, this worth ethic and this drive. And like your father said, this desire to not quit. A lot of people have that and they are going after the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And there's a part of them that truly desires that. But yet they also want to be present. And I think it's very difficult for people to step into that place where they can do both. And so I love the practices. First, the awareness of I'm giving myself permission. I want to be more present, but how do you actually put that into practice, right? Because it's one thing to have the awareness and say, that's what I desire. But if you are a type A personality, oftentimes that need, right, that need to win overcomes that. So what's the actual practice for you guys putting that into play?
For me, it took time to figure out what tools I needed.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't have the tools. But watching my daughter grow and talking to expert therapists, they said, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Right? I had to find out what worked and what didn't work. But the base thing to do, I had to find out what made me happy. What made me happy. Not what made other people, what made me happy. And what could I do that no one could take away? Okay? No one's going to take my child away. No one's going to take away my happiness. But if I'm sad, people want to add on to my sadness. So I had to find out what made me feel good. I had to remember what made me not feel good.
Yeah.
And because we all have the ability to choose right and wrong, I figured, you know what? I'm tired of feeling like crap. So I made that choice. But society's telling us not to feel good.
Yeah.
So I said, screw that. I like feeling good. I like to laugh.
Yeah.
And I did this crazy experiment. And I decided one day, I'm going to see what happens if I just smile to people. Right? And I started smiling at people. Guess what happened? They smiled back.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah, and it didn't cost anything. I said, that's kind of cool.
Right.
And that's what I started doing. I just started broadcasting. I just started letting feeling good. It was okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be a kid. Be young, be juvenile, but be respectful.
And it's interesting because I use time for me, my love language of where I'm spending my time.
Yeah.
And however you articulate it, to me, it's how much time am I spending in this resistance with anger or offense or whatever, because I know my inherent genetics. I know my inherent energetics. I know that I'm like you inherently. I've inherited this SOB, competitive, comparative, and I really use time for me of how much time am I going to spend to, one, be aware of when I react, like you said, and then two, bring myself back to ease, which is joy, peace, happiness. For me, ease is my homeostasis. And so in your question, for me, it's, hey, 90% of the outcomes in my life I want will only happen with consistent behavior, a committed, intentional, everyday behavior. And yet I'm a realist. So for me, sleep and 3 hours of consistent, committed behavior creates 90% of the exponential outcomes in my life, which leaves, what is the importance of the other 14 hours a day for me? The variance of the behavior where I react to fear, where I'm not my higher self, where I'm making mistakes, having setbacks, failures. For 14 hours of my 24, 7 of my 10 committed hours are sleep. Yeah. But what's so interesting is only 10% of the outcomes are relative to the 14 hours of variant behavior. But without the 14 hours of variant behavior that brings the lessons, that also provides enjoyment in variety, in even living life in that emotional, I'm pissed off. Yeah. Like I feel alive when I'm pissed off. And I just don't want to spend all day pissed off. I want to spend minutes a moment.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
And so I think it's important, as I analyze your answer, because I agree 100% with it.
Thank you.
To put it into like my stupid time analysis of, see what he's talking about? It's if you're committed every day to do stuff, it'll give you the results you want, but it's okay that the majority of your day is spent in variance, in human nature, and learning from it. Yeah. And if we have that mindset, we can have everything.
Absolutely. You said something that was interesting, fear. You know, fear is not real.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But we make it real.
Mm-hmm.
We give fear so much power, it doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So just stop with the fear and just embrace what is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But that again has to go back. What is your truth? Throw away all those things people told you when you're younger and just be your truth. It's that simple. But you have to start somewhere. That's why I say reboot. Reboot. It's okay.
To wrap us up here, you said something interesting, kind of in passing. People want to add to your sadness.
Oh, I didn't hear
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's an interesting, right? So you have to find what makes you happy because the world is trying to add to your sadness. And for someone like you in your entire family, one of the things, like we have social media. That's where people love to add to your sadness. That's what social media is largely used for.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see, and I see this happen to Dave, happens to us, happens to anybody that's putting anything out there on social media. Anywhere somebody finds out that your family has done well, coming up from nothing, working hard and made something, then people are like, well, what are you doing for the world? Like, what are you like? So like, you should now just like, what are you doing to fix this and this and this? And I do know for a fact that your family, because your family values and your family cares, that you do things for the world. But tell us a little bit about how you balance that, because is that the portion that we just do it because it makes us happy? We don't care what everybody else is saying, even though literally while you're doing it, they're telling you you're not doing enough or you're not doing anything, and they love to just pile on. How do you reconcile as a family and sit down and say, listen, we've done well and we've done well for ourselves, but we're also doing right? Like, it's, to me, it's fascinating in your industry, how clean is the plastic bottles, they're destroying the environment. And you were like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at this for like, and so
Let's talk
how do
about
you
this.
reconcile? Because we're not going to go out and tell everybody this story. How do I get centered and feel good about myself inside with what I'm doing?
So here's what happened for me. 3 years ago, everybody was telling me, you see things differently. You know, share. So I wrote a book 3 years ago called Get Your Satisfaction, became a Wall Street Journal bestseller. And I'm thinking, well, what was in that book that people didn't understand or what they resonated? And it was passion, respect, and gratitude. So for us, it's really about, I don't care what lies people are saying. You know, what's tangible? What can you touch? And so there's things that we have put out there that you can touch that we've done, okay? And I don't care what your truth is. And I know that's being mean. It's my truth is what matters.
Right.
So we do things that show humility and respect on what can happen if you actually care. Can you love unconditionally? Again, you can look at what we've done, you can look at what I've done, okay? And now I've really focused on how to give back more. And so that's why I created this emotionallydebtfree.com, where you go on there and you can figure out where your emotional debt is. And so you're not worried about what this person's doing and that person's doing. How do you give back and feel good? We don't obsess about it. It's in us and we know what feels good, right? We don't wake up every morning, how can we do this? It's in us. You know, hey, we're gonna give $7.5 million to cancer research. We're gonna give millions of water to Convoy of Hope. We're gonna help college kids. We're gonna bring water to Honduras. It's what we do.
Yeah.
It's like breathing. It's natural. But the way to do that, you have to know who you are and what makes you feel good. We don't know, the average person doesn't know that because they won't talk to themselves. They can't be alone. So go back to that crap that happened to you when you're younger and throw it out the effing window and just feel like what makes you feel good. We overthink it, sorry.
I know, I love that you keep saying like you have to unconditionally love, but what the problem is just the same way you said you have to respect yourself to give respect. You have to unconditionally love yourself and give yourself grace in order to give that out into the world.
Right.
And I think that's what you're saying is people haven't been able to step into that and really unconditionally love themselves and give themselves forgiveness. And that's why they have difficulty spreading that in the world.
Absolutely. And I'll wrap up on this. Remember when you were a kid and you have a field trip, right?
Yeah.
You'd get a piece of paper from the teacher and it'd be a permission slip, right? Give yourself a permission slip. Give your permission slip to feel.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about these hours a day where you go do that. Do it. It's okay. And guess what's happening? You might like it.
Yeah.
But you're not going to know if you like it unless you try it.
Absolutely.
We overthink stuff.
That's
If it
true.
feels good, do it. If it doesn't feel good, don't. It's not that complicated.
Last time we did this, I asked every guest the same starting question. Today, I'm going to do a different ending. I'm going to ask Dave to end. What did you learn, life lessons you learned from Alex today?
You know, it's really simple about truth. You know, I have a saying, what other people think is none of my business. That reboot is a takeaway that we can reboot and start over. And it's a blessing and a freedom that all of us have. Some of us are forced into it. I know I was forced into it by losing everything. And to, hey, I better reboot.
Yeah.
But I find it super compelling that someone that has so much already would have the catalyst in their life to say, hey, you know what? There's a lot of people saying a lot of things in a lot of different ways, but I'm just going to reboot and find my truth. And we should take and appreciate other people. Appreciate means add value to it. But what they say is really none of our business. It's the appreciation, the gratitude, respect that you talk about. That's my biggest takeaway of how to reboot. It's easy to say, not easy to do, especially when you're on top. It's easy to do when you're on bottom. So I found that really compelling. So thank you so much for that.
Well,
takeaway.
first of all, thank you for saying that. I don't know. I'm an emotional guy. It makes your heart beat because I'm just me, right? Here I'm sitting with you guys and something I said resonate with you. Going back to it, I just want to resonate with other people. I want to encourage people. It's okay to be this way. That's it. Sorry.
I love it. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. We super appreciate.
You're welcome.
Hopefully we added value to you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you
Absolutely.
being here. And likewise, for all of you who tune in every single week, whether it's none of your business or Dave's amazing podcast, which one of the 5 this one shows up on, listen to all 5 of them, listen to all of the content, share the content. If you enjoyed today's content, share it with someone that you care about and love. Thank you guys so much.